What's up guys, this is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review we are looking at the Storm Collectibles 1/12 scale action series Mortal Kombat Sub-Zero. This is a Sub-Zero for Mortal Kombat 1 and Mortal Kombat 2 depending on whichever accessory you use. And as you guys know, I really like this line so far. I already reviewed Scorpion. If you haven't seen that video, check it out. I also reviewed Ryu, so if you haven't seen that video, check it out. You're not going to want to miss those figures. This guy is basically the same as Scorpion, so you know he's going to be pretty good. He does have some unique accessories and obviously a unique paint job. So let's go ahead and get him off the stand and take a closer look. This guy stands just shy of 7 inches tall, so he is kind of tall, especially for 1/6 or 1/12 scale. Makes him just shy of 18 centimeters. So again, he is technically too big for 1/12 scale. We've been over this, but I want to show you guys another example. A lot of the figures these days that are supposedly in 1/12 scale actually aren't. They're all actually a little bit too big, except for maybe the DC icons, which surprisingly people complained about being too small. So there he is up against the Bandai America Red Ranger. And here we have the Marvel Legends Spider UK, which is my new favorite Marvel Legends body mold. You can see he's not that much taller. In fact, let me lower the camera a little bit so you can see that. He's only a tiny bit taller, so if you're really worried about the scale, personally, I wouldn't. I'm not worried about it. And then just for fun, here he is up against the NECA Predator. That's the Scar Predator right there. Obviously a lot taller. So yes, he's technically a little bit taller than even the other figures that are at this scale, but I think personally that it's okay. And they just chose to make him a little bigger to fit in the articulation and the details that they wanted to. I can live with it. Would I prefer it if it was a tiny bit shorter? Maybe. I don't know. It's not that big of a deal for me to worry about, so I'm not going to. So as you can see, this guy is the exact same body as Scorpion, but he's blue instead of yellow, and it looks really nice. There are a couple things to note, though, about the paint job. I don't want to spend too much time talking about the exact same stuff as last time, but the skin is all painted very nicely. You have this little skin, not speckles, but little dots to give him some kind of like skin texture and detail. There's some shading throughout the skin, and the plastic that's molded in is a very nice skin tone, so I like that a whole bunch. We have these two armbands up here that are sculpted and painted, and they're painted well enough. And then the forearm piece is actually a separate piece, so there's no issue at all about the cleanliness or the straightness of the paint. It's all a separate piece, so there's no issues at all there. It does have a little bit of wear. We have some silver dry brushing on there to make it look like metal. Of course, the hands do have the painted pieces on there, but they're very clean also. For the outfit, they did a really good job with the black line work on this guy. It's even a little bit better than Scorpion. You can see for the tie right around here, it's really nice. The black around here is nice and clean. However, it's kind of interesting to note that the checkerboard pattern, or whatever, the checker pattern, quilt pattern, there's no black wash in there at all. Scorpion did have a little bit. Sub-Zero doesn't have any. He does have it down here for the belt area, but not on the checker part at all. So that's kind of interesting. I'm not sure why they did that. Maybe they just thought it would look too dark. I don't know. I think it would look cool with it, but it's not a deal breaker to not have it there. We do have a little bit of shading throughout on the black parts. It's very subtle. In fact, it could even be just how the plastic was molded, but regardless, it looks good and it's there, so that's nice. You can see the highlights, they stand out. And then we have the boots, or the shin pads and knee pads, which have a very nice paint job with the blue and black and the silver dry brush on there to make them pop, so that looks very nice. And then lastly, as far as the paint goes, we have the face, which very nicely detailed in the actual face part, where there's nice shading throughout, and the eyes have that nice black ring around them to make the white stand out. And then the face mask has a nice paint job also. It's basically just the blue with a little bit of silver dry brushing. And then the black's not really a wash, but it kind of looks like a wash, but it looks good either way. So very happy with the paint job. So now before we get into the articulation, let's go ahead and talk accessories. We do have two interchangeable face masks. We have the more mechanical looking one, and then we have the cloth one. They both look very nice. It's worth noting that the figure is not intended to be displayed without them. He just has a big hole in his face to hold them in place, so you don't want to do that. We have a bunch of different hands. We have the two fist hands that come on him in the package. We have one gripping hand. We have two open palm hands, two kind of open slash gripping hands, and then one where the fingers are opened up really far for like a martial arts pose. So lots of display options there. We do have the skull and spinal column accessory, which is very nice. It's nicely detailed. It has some red and some black, and mine has a little bit of green on it here and there. I'm not quite sure what's up with that, but it's there. And the cool thing about this is the skull itself is on a ball peg, so you can interchange it with Scorpion's head if you want to, which is very cool. And I imagine you can do it with the other figures once they come out in this line. And then we have a nice Ice Blast accessory for his hand, which kind of clips onto one of the hands, and it fits very nicely. And then we have one that just basically sets down next to his feet, and that looks like he's doing a little slide move, which is really cool. And lastly, we have a little instruction booklet. In case you needed to figure out how to interchange these parts, it's all in there. So there it is. I think that's a pretty good batch of accessories, especially given the price point of around $50 and the size of the figure and the articulation and detail and everything. I am very pleased with it. So before we go into the articulation, I want to talk about sculpt just a little bit. It's all hand sculpted, and it all looks really, really good. It's got a very organic feel to it. I love the musculature. I love the cloth. It all looks very nice. Some people have commented on the proportions, that the hands are huge. Yes, it is definitely a stylized look for a human. It's my understanding that that's what WB wanted, that it wasn't necessarily up to Storm. They wanted it to be slightly cartoonish in that the hands and arms are pretty big, that the head is not that big. Personally, I think it looks fine. I don't mind it at all. And it looks worse than it actually is, just because the arms are a lighter color than the rest of the body, so it stands out. They stand out a little bit more. But especially once you get him posed, but even standing there, I think he looks just fine. I really don't mind it at all. So if you're worried about that because you've heard somebody say it, I wouldn't. Personally, it's really no issue at all. And I don't have any particular connection to Mortal Kombat, so it's not like I'm just excusing things away. It doesn't bother me. So there you go. Okay, so as far as articulation goes, we have some very unique things. If you didn't see the Scorpion review and you refuse to click on that link I posted earlier, I'll show you what you need to see here, although you should probably check out Scorpion. We have a ball peg for the head, because obviously we need to be able to swap out Scorpion's head for the other skull, and who knows what other options there may be with that reptile that they just showed at Toy Fair. So we have a ball peg here. It's actually a double ball peg, and that goes all the way down into the chest, and it has this piece right here. On Scorpion, I thought this piece was connected in the front, but maybe it was just tucked in very well. But either way, this is a separate piece that's nice and soft, so that you can move the head around on that neck peg, and the neck will move with the head and give you a very nice look. Now, you might have to retuck it in some poses, of course. That's fine. And technically, you can pose it such that it gives you a big gap, but you don't need to do that, and you can pretty much make any pose you want. You can make it work. So I really like that. I love that they had that really long ball peg to give us that extra range. You can pose the head however you want, and this extra neck piece is very nice. Maybe the neck piece could be a little bit longer just to prevent a little bit of extra gapping, but it's really not an issue. I wouldn't worry about it at all. For the shoulders, you would expect them to be pretty limited, but much like the neck, they're designed very well. We have a ball hinge for the shoulder, which is pretty standard. We see that on most figures these days. And that ball hinge is connected with a ball peg into the torso, which is also fairly standard, but it's a very long ball peg, and it's covered by this piece of flesh right there. That's just a floating cap that hides the joint, so you can move the arm around very well. Bring it pretty far forward. Of course, the outfit will get in the way, but it's really soft, so you don't have to worry about that. You can still move his arm a whole bunch without even moving the shoulder. And then for the ball hinge for the shoulder, you can get it way up. No problem at all. The articulation for these guys is just, especially the Mortal Kombat ones, it's fantastic. I love these figures because you can tell they really put a ton of care into putting them together. So we also have our bicep swivel, which is standard. Nothing really to talk about there. It's a functional bicep swivel. We have a double jointed elbow, which gives us better than 90 degrees. I like that a whole bunch. I've had some people complain that it's too ugly from the front. You know, every import figure, you can see the joints on it, and this one doesn't look any worse than most of them, so I don't understand why people don't like that. Plus, you need the articulation. There has to be separations in the plastic, and then it looks really good from the outside. They actually sculpted the elbow piece rather than just having it flat or putting some kind of weird cap on it. It works very well, and it looks very good, so I like it. I don't see the issue that some people are having. This is a separate piece, so it'll move around, obviously, however you need it to, so you can move that around with the hand. And here's one of the things that I absolutely love about these figures, and I'm going to keep talking about this on everyone that has it. You have just a ball peg that connects the hand to the wrist. Normally you have a straight peg, so this gives you extra articulation in that part, and then you have the ball hinge on top of that that lets everything move around. And then on top of that, you have the hand, which is a soft plastic piece, so it can just interchange very easily on a straight peg. So they're kind of squishy. Let's see if I can show you. They're just enough squishy to make it easy to interchange. You don't have to worry about breaking anything. Now, since it is just a ball peg and it has movement, sometimes you could pull the wrong piece off, but it's really no big deal because they all just snap back together. On Scorpion, I didn't have that issue, so maybe there's just a tiny bit of mold tolerance variance. I don't think I needed to mix those two words. Anyway, it's no issue, but you get really great range, and you can hide the joint with the wrist piece, and it looks great. So I love that. For the torso, we have a double ball peg in the upper torso. Now, it's going to be kind of hard to see, but you can see the seam right there and over here on the side. What that does is it allows you to lean the figure pretty far back and pretty far forward, really far forward, to be honest. I love that. I love the way they did it. And this plastic is soft enough and sculpted such that it moves with the figure very naturally, and it looks very good. And then, of course, it can lean side to side on that same joint. And these guys, though, since they're flat, they don't work as well side to side. They still move very nicely, so that's good. And of course, it rotates. Of course, rotating it doesn't look as good unless you're real careful about how you pose them. It will move those parts out of the way in a weird fashion, but you can just push them back, so that's fine. And that's all just the top articulation. For the bottom, we have an upside down T-joint, which is not a T ball hinge like I'd say for Marvel Legends. This is literally a T with ball pegs on every end. So there's a ball peg going into the lower torso, and then for the upside down T part, there's a ball peg for each hip. And that allows the figure to lean back even farther, so that's just the bottom ball peg for that lean. And we'll do that up here too. And of course, it can move side to side and rotate around that way. So you really have tons of articulation and posing options. And the cool thing about that T-joint is that he doesn't actually have a solid crotch piece. He just has this floating piece that's underneath all of his clothes. And that allows for the legs to have incredibly good range. You can kick the leg really far forward. You can see it's just a ball peg with a socket down there with another socket that swivels around it. You can bring the legs all the way out to the side. These guys have way better articulation than Ryu, even. Functionality, they're technically about the same, but practically speaking, these guys are just, you can pose them pretty much however you want. And that's without even trying. You can give them that kind of crazy kick, and you can do better than that if you actually spend a couple of seconds to line things up just right. So I absolutely love the way they worked that out. And you do have the thigh swivel around the socket for that ball peg, so that's good. Double jointed knees, they are much better than Ryu also. Almost 180. No problem at all posing this guy. And they look pretty good too, I have to be honest. They're not 100% perfect, but most knees aren't. There's just not a great way to do them because the legs are generally kind of thick, so they don't work like elbows. And that works very nicely. Now, for the ankle, we have a standard hinge for the ankle, which goes forward and back. But you also have a ball peg at the bottom of that, so you can offset the foot and bring it even farther forward or farther back. And then, of course, that ball peg does give you an ankle rocker to a little bit of a degree. Now, here's the thing. Ryu has that same joint, but because he has the pants, there's a swivel in here, so you're technically able to rotate the whole thing and use that hinge as an ankle rocker. Now, Scorpion and Sub-Zero do not have a swivel in the shin anywhere. I really wish they did, and I'm hoping maybe Storm can work that into there and let it kind of just rotate behind the shin pad. That'd be so nice. You'd have a perfect ankle rocker then. But as it is, it's still really good. And then we have a toe hinge, which is not my favorite design, and they need to work on that, I think, a little bit. So there it is, guys. That's Sub-Zero, and it is a fantastic figure. I personally like Sub-Zero more than Scorpion, just out of character preference, but the figure itself is just as good. They're basically the exact same thing. They're fantastic. Absolutely love these guys. So much detail, so much articulation, so much posability. Such a good value. I am very happy with this line so far, and I think you guys will be too. So make sure you check them out. There are lots of pre-orders up on Big Bad Toy Store, so you want to check out the link in the description below and probably get them before they sell out, because these guys are going to be hot commodities once they do. They already are. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I have new videos up every single day. We talk about action figures, movies, TV shows, video games, all kinds of fun stuff. So make sure you come back for that. Turn on notifications, give the video a thumbs up, and in the meantime, keep collecting.